Hello everybody, Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be speaking about the 1921D Morgan Silver Dollar. There's so much on this coin. It's a really interesting time for the Morgan Dollar, a lot of redesigning obviously, and we'll be talking about the ones that are going to have extra value. There's some super valuable ones that you want to be looking for that aren't obviously varieties. Those are going to be the VAMs. In that section, we'll go over valuation for any 1921D Morgan Dollar as well as some history. Then we'll talk about mint errors and a really special presentation strike that I want to discuss. In terms of the basic information, though, they started in 1878 after the Bland-Allison Act. Silver had been in a dip for a long time. There were interests in having a bit of an inflationary element to the U.S. economy, as since the Civil War, things were deflating. So the Morgan dollar gets started, but that's all the way back in 1878. Eventually, there's tons of these sitting around in treasury vaults, and there's no need for more silver dollar coins. By 1904, the remaining silver runs out. They stop striking the coins, and then fast forward to after World War I, there's some silver interests that have some legislation that basically mandates the purchase of a bunch of U.S. silver to be melted down and then recoined into coins, often which would be sent over to Great Britain, but some of it was retained in the States, and basically there were a lot of coins melted, silver purchased, and they went into producing these 1921 Morgan dollars after a really long time. They then switched over to the piece design, but for this specific one, the hubs had been, so the process of creating the dies that are used to strike the coins, well, the dies are created from hubs, and those had all been destroyed, so they had to recarve them, and it was sort of done in a rush. So you can see, if we go back a few slides, the breast feathers are really weak. The relief of Morgan and in general is much more shallow, and the striking quality was really pretty low, so there's few that have really good eye appeal. That holds true across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. This is the only year, though, that Denver strikes the Morgan dollar, which is sort of interesting, and they're actually a little bit in uncirculated condition, slightly rare because nobody was saving them, especially in higher uncirculated condition. Just the strike wasn't good. They would get bag marked. They would, the relief led to a lot more scratching and less interesting appearance. And there aren't any proof coins, but there are some different things and rumors going around about the first 100 coins that were from the Denver Mint. Here we see this was the 9th that was created. It says 9th dollar released from the first 100 ever coined at Denver Mint. Thomas Annier, SUPT. I don't know exactly if he's like a superintendent or whatever he is, but he gets supposedly the first 50 or 100, engraves them, but not all of them have been found. This one sold for $11,850 in a Heritage Auctions sale, but it was the number 9 out of 100. Right here, we see the coin itself. Some of the values speak for themselves. Not really rare until you get Mint State 63. $150 is a little bit more than like the bulk Mint State 63, but there's really sharp jumps in Mint State 64, so you want to be on the lookout for that. Again, achieving that grade is going to be tougher because the strike quality often is low, and then the values proceed as follows. 20.3 million is a really high number, one of the highest in the Morgan dollar series, and then we get into some of the VAMs. So you can see that the values are higher. In this case, there were some grease-filled dies that sort of filled up on the S and led to the TRU blank T VAM, and the values, again, certainly sharply up. This is, you can see it if it, so a lot of people have pulled these out, but every once in a while somebody reports that they find a new one, and it's something to be on the lookout for because it can be found in any condition. This one is a capped R. Looks like a little bit of a die break, I assume, that gets filled in here. And it's like a relatively raised break, so people do like collecting it. The values spike less compared to the previous one. There's also the unicorn die break that looks like the horn of a unicorn coming out of the D in United. This one sells for similar values. It's like $175 in Mint State 63. Not a big difference, but still something nice to be looking for. And then there's the double cud VAM 1X. There's only one that's known. It's owned by Jeff Oxman, circulated for a really long time, and that's a super pronounced cud, one of the biggest in the Morgan dollars. So I think that this is a very valuable coin, and you could see some skyrocketing prices if 2 or 3 more open up, because then more people could collect it. And I think it would actually be good if a few were discovered as opposed to bad, because then it's really like a well-known VAM. There's the wing dot, so you can see a little bit on the reverse, sort of at the bottom of the left-handed wing. Couldn't find too many prices. Shows you the upside in Mint State 66 on rare coins. Mint State 66, tough to get anyways, but it's not going to be quite as much of a differentiator in weaker conditions. And then there's also a similar grease-filled die error on the T, or it's a variety. I classify the VAMs as varieties, I think. And I couldn't find too much price history, but you can assume, similar to the TRU blank T, that there's going to be at least like a double in value. So some of the mint errors, we have a broad struck coin. The collars were not there to hold this coin in, so it expands after the strike. And you can see, it's not off center. If some of the design was like off of the coin, then it would be considered off center. But the broad strike more just shows how it expands. Really, really interesting presentation. Sold for $2,400. There's a die adjustment strike. When they're striking the coin, they want to get the pressure right, and so there's some test pieces along the way. This is a good example of that, $850 for a 1921D. It's not where it looks like it might be, but it's actually the die adjusting. This is a struck off center. You can see that the reading, it's actually off center as opposed to just a broad strike. Similar value, $2,640. And then lastly, we have the prooflike. You want to be on the lookout for any deep mirror prooflike or prooflike coins. They get quite expensive because they just didn't happen too much. There's no proofs like the Chapman or Zerb. I think it's Zerby, but maybe Zerb proofs from 1921 and 21S. But there's some clear upside if you are able to find one with really reflective fields and get the designation. People are going to pay up for it quite a bit. Couldn't find any price history on the deep mirror prooflike, but that pretty much is a full overview in terms of what to look for on these. The history, your coin probably going to be worth like $30, $35 because they're common in worse condition if it's pretty worn, but there can be some great upside for a brilliant example. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like the video, comment, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. And I also have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and some other social media platforms. You can also go to my main channel website, treasuretownYT.com, to learn more about the channel and sort of stay in contact. I also will eventually host all of these videos on coinsmetalscards.com, which will be both news, marketplace, and coin information. I do have the goal of eventually getting pretty much every US coin, date, mint mark, denomination on the channel with a similar video to the one that you just watched, and that will likely all be hosted there. And then I also have treasuretowncoins.com, which is sort of my coin dealing wing, coin dealing only entity that is a little bit less focused on content production. So thank you so much, and I'll look forward to seeing you on some of my other videos. I also have videos that are not just the date, mint mark, denomination recap in this format, so you can check some of those out, and I'll have fun seeing you there.